All right, we are live for our second kind of beta testing edition of AI Office Hours with myself, Chris Bryce. I'm the founder of Dotfusion, and Dave, who is leading our AI engineering over here. Dave, good morning. How you doing,
Morning.
man?
It's not
You get
seeing
some
my
sleep?
hand. It's blocking my hand. Yeah, I got some sleep. I'm doing good. I was up late working on robots, but I'm feeling good.
Oh man, nothing quite like it. Just got off some interesting calls this morning from kind of our content partners around there as they're all trying to adjust to figuring out where to enable AI in their larger platforms. And we're talking about the kind of two main roles that AI is playing right now in the content world anyway, which is really around giving authors that kind of large language model experience right in the platform, but also enabling developers to build on the platforms and create content models and migrations and find other efficiencies where AI can really be helpful. We've been working on in the last week.
Well, we've had some good success with capturing data inside of voice agent conversations, and we're able to take that data and do different things with it. So, using MCP triggers and tying into the MCP servers of some of the tooling, we're able to allow two tools to interact with each other. So for example, a voice agent can now ask, would you like to book a meeting? Goes back to a calendar, checks the availability, sets up the meeting, adds the person to the meeting as an attendee, sends them a reminder, sends them an email. So these are, just basic functionality, but it's great to see that we can use these MCP server connections to use all these tool sets within the tech stack now. So we're able to provide some pretty cool solutions to our clients using this stuff.
Sweet. Maybe we'll pull up some demos and things like that. What we found is that every organization is curious about how to become a bit more efficient with kind of just, I think that's the right concept. Starting small, let's get some fundamental repeatable processes sorted out through agentic flows. But for us across all industries, we're being asked for demos from quick service food industry, law and legal, applications, higher ed, properties. There's all kinds of ways that agents can immediately make systems more efficient. And I think I was even saying it this morning on my other calls, from a voice agent perspective, there's like three major efficiencies: kind of calling, answering, so calling for lead gen and outreach, answering calls as customer service. But I think the stuff you've been working on lately, capturing data from a conversation.
Oh, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like we can automate, like the other day, we had an organization that helps multi-generational farms and with succession planning, and they had an online form, and now it's all been turned into a voice agent experience, which is much more tactile and much more engaging for the end user, and it captures all of the data beautifully and puts it into their CRM. And I think it's interesting, Chris, because each of these businesses that come with a specific use case, it's like solving a puzzle using all of the AI tools and building tech stacks out of those tools. And it's really fun because each of them is like a different just a different problem to solve with a very unique solution. So for example, you were saying about the ordering apps, and now we're able to design entire workflows for these ordering apps where it goes through and asks them, would you like delivery or catering? Would you like this? So we're able to use AI to assist us in building these workflows, and then these workflows themselves go through and perform very specific tasks like collecting an order, providing tax delivery and grand totals and all of these things on the fly. And it's just amazing what we're able to do by breaking these problems into little pieces and figuring out, okay, what tools do we use for each part of this machine? And then you have the machine all put together and you get to watch it run. So it's like you always say, it's like playing with adult Lego.
Yeah. Lego, exactly.
Yeah.
Part of the reason why we do this is not only to make ourselves available to chat about this stuff, but we take snippets of this information and kind of share it afterwards. I was just wondering, something that I'm asked a lot about is, what is the primary tooling that we're using in the back end? And there's a lot of options out there, but we've kind of settled on N8N as our backbone. Do you want to kind of talk in layman's terms what your tool set is and a little bit about N8N in particular?
Yeah, so N8N is a workflow tool that allows you to set up what are called nodes, which perform different actions, and triggers, which are triggered by different events and actions, and it's pretty much like building like a Meccano set for automations. So you can set up, we were just previewing the lead scraping automation that we did, which has a timed trigger every morning. It wakes up, it goes over to a lead tool, a lead provision tool. It goes and scrapes that tool based on an ideal customer profile. It finds all of the records that match with a verified email and validates those emails, sends them into a email management program, and starts to throttle and send those emails for us. And that's, completely automated. And it's just interesting to see with those tools what we're able to achieve, because really your imagination is the ceiling on these things, and any problem that you have, you can sort of map out into a workflow these days and set up an automation. So very cool stuff, and I'm excited to learn more as we keep diving deeper into more complex business cases.
Sweet. Another question that I get in my everyday life is what GPT are you using?
I'm using everything right now, and some of them are better than others at different tasks, and and some people consider those things to be different just based on their own needs.
Right.
But I'm using ChatGPT, Grok. I use Perplexity. I use Manus for some of my agentic stuff. Abacus. I've used Black Box AI is great for agentic stuff and doing the thing about Black Box that I love, which is interesting, is you can do split pane, and you can provide the same prompt across 5 different LLMs, so you can see what the side-by-side differences are in their output, which I thought was a really clever interface for people that are sort of testing responses against each other. And that's a cool tool to check out if you're sort of not sure which tool to use, because you can do some side-by-side comparisons really quickly and see what output suits you. So highly recommend everybody check that out if you're still going down the tunnel of which LLM is best for my use case.
You know what I'm going to do here? Well, we're kind of in experimental mode. I'm going to just try sharing a screen here.
Yep.
And see how that goes. But for folks who are listening in now or in the future, I'm just going to highlight a little bit about what Dave was talking about. So this is the Black Box interface, and it's pretty cool what you were talking about, because you have access to all the models in one place, which is cool too, right? And then something else that we've been leaning into pretty heavily, I think, over the last month or so, is using Perplexity Pro, where you get access to all of the models, kind of the main power models. Like you said, love Claude for day-to-day. Gemini's got its own kind of niche stuff, especially when you're looking at, you kind of separate the idea from your GPT for, editing content. And some GPTs are better for coding. Some of them are better for helping kind of put together agentic tools and things. And you can see the sophistication and the race in the marketplace to have your one central tool that now connects into Gmail and calendar and that kind of thing natively. And
I'm,
then,
I
sorry.
was just no, I'm just sort of like, you've got me thinking, because the evolution of, like, if you remember back to original web search, like it started as web search and then it became like Metacrawler. Do you remember, like,
Yeah, totally.
and I'm thinking the evolution of these AI tools might go the same way, where it's sort of like meta crawling all of the responses from all the LLMs and then creating that like super response using like a distillation lens sort of over top of them. I mean, like, the only consideration with that is firing 5 LLMs at the same time like has a pretty big power consumption.
Yes.
So like I think that's the only sort of like hump to get over, to be working on like a meta model like that. But still, it's interesting, and I'm curious to see what the future is of how they bring all these tools together and start to like curate like better results based on like the output of all of them. If that sounds sort of makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. Makes as much sense as we can make these
Yeah.
days. What are you seeing out there as far as the development of voice agents go? I know you kind of have your preferences, but what's happening out there?
There's a lot happening on all sides of the agent stack right now. So the transcription side is getting more accurate and quicker. The voice models are becoming more realistic and responsive. One of the voice agent providers yesterday came out with a new voice pack from Rhyme that sounds more human than any package. I've been testing it, and the latency is a little bit high for what we're using it for right now, but it's very promising and starts to inject a lot more human, like ums and ahs and sighs, and it's very. This particular project is very conscious of the way that people even breathe before they talk and all of these natural cues. So they're starting to build, pardon me, they're starting to build more and more natural pieces of the language, not just the speaking itself, but what comes before and after the speaking, natural things that happen during speaking. Sometimes when people misspeak and then correct themselves and start, so it's doing all of these natural things a human would do to try to mimic human speech patterns. So I think there's a lot happening on both the transcription side for latency as well as the voice side for realism. And then when you bring that all together into the stack, it's creating more human-like conversation. Like every little incremental piece that they edge forward in that stack of tools with their speech to text and text to speech and transcription and voice model, it's getting more and more human by the day. And really, I'm not exaggerating by saying that. It really is like daily progress coming out at this point. Yeah, it's pretty wild.
It's pretty amazing. And some of the interesting feedback that we've got is that we thought folks would be a bit adverse to speaking with a bot, but if we play around with a bit of humor and have the bot kind of introduce itself as a bot, there's a bit of novelty in the first time someone has a chat with a voice agent, and they experience like how natural the conversation is these days.
Yeah. And I think that's funny, because that's something that like you and I both were surprised by, is that we thought, oh, maybe if they figure out they're speaking with someone that's not human, like they'll have this knee-jerk reaction to not continue speaking with them. But it's actually quite the opposite, because the agent is so human-like that once they find out that it's not a human, it's almost like more intriguing than speaking with a human, because a lot of people have not spoken with a robot at a human level like that, where it was almost undetectable, and then they just like, man, this is so cool, and it's almost like they want the call to keep going longer than it would have. And you've got them. So I think that novelty side that we have right now of people speaking to agents is something that businesses can really capitalize on. And if I was a marketing professional and I was looking for a new, unique way to market my product, I would say, like, display advertising that has a call to action button that links right into one of these agents. It's a genius marketing play right now, because it gets people talking with your brand everything that's said inside that conversation is gold, which can be shipped back into your data warehouse. And really, it's just a beautiful time to be ahead of the curve on this stuff as a business right now.
Yeah, and can you describe, maybe we can talk about things a little bit more technically. I know you've been engineering voice to capture information and put it into a CRM or a database or a spreadsheet. Can you describe how that works?
Yeah, so inside of the voice agent, you can set up very specific prompts. So you can set up a prompt of how the transcript is made. You can give it direction on note taking and how thorough to be with the transcription notes. But then off of those transcription notes, you can be telling the agent, okay, these 7 vital questions I want to set up data points for. And I want to capture these and organize them into usable data that will be pushed into a CRM. And then I go ahead and set up intuitive variable names, and the agent itself knows to tuck all of that data from the conversation into those variables so that it can be shipped out to a data point through either an API or a hook. And yeah, it's just beautiful stuff, because I've set up some of these, and upon the first round of testing, it's already ready to ship. Like, it's just perfect, and all of the data is coming through. Everything's perfectly organized, and what we set out to do and its output we put it through the goalposts. So yeah, it's exciting stuff. It's very intuitive. It's, the use cases are almost unlimited, but like setting up forms this way, it's so much easier and more tactile. And if you're, let's say you're gathering customer feedback in a form, and it's like a little prohibitive because those forms are like, someone has to go there actively and do this. If you could just hit your customer with a phone call right after and say, hey, would you mind giving us like 10 seconds worth of feedback, and you get everything that you need, and it ships it right into your CRM, versus, maybe you had a success rate of getting 10 to 20% of those people to answer. Maybe now you've got 30 to 40%, much more data, and the customer is able to do it in an easier way. So yeah, I think it's just a really good time to be leveraging these things, because makes your customer's life easier and gets you the data that you need.
Yeah, and do you want to talk a little bit about languages and translation? I was surprised the other day when in one of our demo voice agents, I just asked it to reply to me in Cambodian language. Yeah. And it did. I'm like, what the, who, what? And then in the chatbot version, it started spitting out Cambodian language fonts and sentences, which is, it's not a Latin alphabet even. What do you see going on in the AI for translation?
Well, I mean, like, we can offer fluid translation in like over 20 languages with the voice agents right now, and I think they're only going to be deepening that box of languages going into the future. But it's so interesting from like a business use case standpoint. Pardon me, had to clear the frog. Yeah, it's interesting from a business case standpoint, because you could have conversations in any language with your customer, and be able to service them in ways that you were never able to before. Or it would have been really hard to do with a multi-language switchboard, where you've hired people that can speak different languages just to be flexible enough to speak with your customers. So I think from a business standpoint, it changes, like, from an efficiency and cost standpoint of having to have a number of people on staff to service people of different language types. Like, this is like groundbreaking for businesses like this, and also just for on-the-fly translation apps and stuff like that, where you're able to speak in one language through one side of the app and it translates it. And there's just a million use cases for this stuff, but it really is like I was saying, it's moving on a daily basis. It's getting better. So
yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And it just got me thinking, we're deploying a voice agent for a shopping center that has a kind of a community with mixed languages. And what a great way to start the conversation. Like, do you want to continue this conversation in English or French or Spanish or whatever the language of your choice is?
Yeah.
And then it just adjusts on the fly. Whereas in the past, it's like, hold on, let me find someone.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I can see this like in healthcare, like in hospitals where they have to go and find a translator. And, and I've seen this before when I've been in the hospital and they've had someone with a language barrier and they're like scrambling to find someone that speaks Hindi so that they can tell this person what the plan is, type of thing. And it would be great, like in the medical field, for doctors and nurses just to be able to use this sort of tooling to be able to communicate with people like on the spot and not have to worry about procuring that translator, on the shop floor, because that experience can be pretty, like I've seen it firsthand, it can be pretty frantic, right? And it's like sometimes these things are like have a very urgency to them, right? So
yeah. Along with all of this comes a heightened sense of governance. What happens if the agent spazzes out? What's happening out there as far as you can see? Maybe the first question is, what do you say the state of accuracy is?
So the state of accuracy, it sort of depends on two things. It depends on the language model, but it also depends on the prompting which you set up for these agents in the tech stack. So, I mean, what are known as AI hallucinations are possible, but what I'm seeing is that with very properly engineered prompts, that I'm not seeing any of this. It's more like the hallucinations occur when there's a lack of input or a lack of direction from the end user, and then AI has to try to figure out those blanks. But the less blanks you leave for AI to figure out, the less likelihood there is going to be of a hallucination, I feel.
Right. And from what I've witnessed in testing out all the demos, we're 98% there. Like it's rare. And then of course we build into kind of our context engineering, know what we've been talking about. Don't stray from the conversation. Here's your rails.
Yeah.
So it does accurately manage itself. One thing maybe that as far as challenges we're having is sometimes around pronunciation.
Yes.
And that becomes a big factor in the prompt engineering.
And I think that's going to become part of the tech stack as well, as sort of like organizational level pronunciation rules inside of these voice agents. And I was thinking, I was actually thinking of reaching out to the head of product at one of the voice agent tool stacks that we use to address this, of like general things that all agents should do with like phone number pronunciations and this, that, and the other, and local roads and stuff like that are being mispronounced, and just being able to set up organizational level rule sets so that you're not having to go into each agent and phonetically work on the phonetic pronunciation of words and stuff like that. But these are, I think where we are with the voice agents right now is really amazing, and just having to baby them a little bit at the end for pronunciation isn't the worst thing in the world. But I think we're moving ahead on that stuff pretty quickly too. And then with regards to the security side, a lot of these tools are now starting to build in HIPAA compliance for healthcare application, PCI compliance for e-commerce applications and payment processing. So it's the security side and the compliance side of these voice tools is starting to become mindful of all these industry specific use cases like healthcare and law and payment processing and all of these things. So I mean, is there more that needs to be done? Yes, but it's sort of like as people come with the use cases where they don't have something engineered yet, it's sort of like they figure it out along the way. So I think we're moving at a pretty good pace right now, though.
Yeah. Where do you get your information? Part of the scene right now is there's a bit of anxiety on just keeping up. Do you have some cool resources to share that folks might look to figure out, how do you stay on top of all this stuff?
It's interesting, Chris, because that for me happens in a very organic way. I'm not the guy that goes to prompt engineering class. I like to get in there and like prompt and see where the holes are. And then like, for me, like with regards to like learning prompting, I'm much more likely to go find the prompting documentation for a particular LLM and train it to start giving good prompts, like build a prompting tool with the prompting documentation.
Right.
And then be like, okay, I'm gonna give this to you in layman's terms, and then if there's any holes and details that are needed, like I want to make sure that we blow that out and have a very very detailed prompt that's in it doesn't miss anything, right? Mm-hmm. So I try to do that. In terms of other resources, I'm constantly reading AI blogs and going on LinkedIn. I follow a lot of the people who are using the same tooling and working on the same stuff that I'm working on, and I get a lot of community ideas there. But really, for me, I just like to roll up my sleeves and start to get out there. And it's more about, I have an end goal that I want to accomplish, and then how do I get from the start to the finish? And that leads me down a road of researching different tools and different tool stacks and how do I get there? So it's sort of like, on my end, it's sort of all needs based right now, and I'm just learning what is needed to complete those tasks at this point.
And how sophisticated would you say are the current kind of no-code solutions out there? And we're tinkering around with a lot of things to accelerate our product development over here. What's the state of the options these days?
So the no-code stuff is really, for me, like, I love, that's like a passion of mine, is doing like what they refer to as vibe coding. I like to call it like imaginative coding. But right now, like, my favorite tool is Replit. Mm-hmm. Like, I think a lot of the agents, and you can work on doing deployment of apps, but really the most successful apps that I built, like, just with the least amount of effort right now, has been Replit. You can take ideas and build them into a product fairly quickly. And then you do have to have a technical knowledge, though. You have to know how all the data is connecting and how all of the, where all of the pieces of the machine are moving. But I find that we've been able to take projects on Replit and bring up like fully working projects within like a 3 to 4 hour time period with just like very aggressive like development. And it's just cool to have a conversation with a computer and be able to build out like an idea in like that quick of a time. And I was saying too that the interesting part is that when you're in like that writing mode and your brain is all moving and firing those ideas, it's great to get them all out on the paper very quickly, much like someone who's writing a story. Once you're onto that like mindset of having those ideas, you got to like get it all out on the paper, right? So it's the same with vibe coding, I feel, is your brain is in this like ideation mode, and it's just like the quicker you can get it out onto the paper, you can clean it up later, right? But the quicker you get that initial idea out, the better, I think.
Yeah, and something that we started experimenting with a couple of weeks ago is introducing kind of a preliminary stage where we're diagramming out all of the data architecture, creating essentially mermaid diagrams or data structure diagrams before going into the agent tooling. So we couple a strong data structure with a strong prompt with strong brand governance. We have our kind of triangle of awesomeness, and then pop that into the tools, and we have a much more advanced product right off the bat.
Yeah.
Just thinking about how time goes by, especially in lives. Had a birthday yesterday. But we're almost out of time. Maybe just
Happy
to leave
birthday,
an idea.
I did not know that.
Thanks, bro. Maybe next week we can have a bit of a focus on sales and marketing engineering, and we'll just look at maybe some outreach systems and get some demos going and collect feedback from the group here. But yeah, our intent is to be open, share, answer questions, help people kind of get through a little bit of the, I guess, the hype of all things, and let folks know what's working, what isn't working, as we kind of agentify our agency over here. So on that note, Dave, I'm going to hop into some other things. Thanks again for making time in your family life to join and share what's going on this week in AI.
Yeah, I love it. I love doing these talks, and hopefully we can get some more community engagement out there, just so we can address some questions from our participants and start talking with the crowd about what they're up to as well.
Awesome. Okay, man. Have a great morning, and I'll see you at Supreme.
See you at Supreme. Bye-bye.